Most royal books are either too polite or too recycled to really shake anything. But Andrew Lee's latest release landed like a brick through a palace window. The timing couldn't have been better or worse, depending on which side of the gates you're on. The Epstein files had just crept back into the headlines. The summer news cycle was dry, and Prince Harry had just threatened to sue Lee over a rather unflattering story. And boom, Andrew's book hit #1 in the UK and America, with the New York Post running 5 separate articles on it in under a week. But this isn't just about juicy royal drama. This is about someone finally putting in print what everyone else has whispered for years, but never dared to write down. See, Andrew Lee isn't just another loud opinion. He's a scholar, Cambridge educated, Edinburgh polished, and a fellow of the Royal Historical Society. The man isn't playing tabloid games, he's slicing through royal PR fluff with surgical precision. And that's exactly why his book is setting Buckingham on fire. One of the most disturbing points he raises? Fergie. That's right, Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York. While Prince Andrew's name has long been dragged through the dirt, and honestly, deservedly so, Fergie's managed to slip under the radar. Until now. Lee makes a compelling case that she's actually the more dangerous figure. Why? Because she's a master of reinvention. She sins, she goes on Oprah, she cries, she gets forgiven, and then she does it all over again. She's been milking her royal connection like it's an ATM. Her companies? Smoke and mirrors. No real transactions, no solid audits, just the illusion of business. And while she publicly claimed to have cut ties with Epstein in 2010, witnesses say they saw her at his properties well into 2015. You can't spin that. That's not optics, that's deception. Meanwhile, her financial ties to Epstein were bigger than she ever admitted, and yet she keeps creeping back into the royal fold. Public appearances, holiday walkabouts. She's not being sidelined, she's being welcomed back. That raises an uncomfortable question. Why is the royal family keeping her so close? According to Lee, it's fear, pure fear. They're terrified of what she might reveal if she ever truly turned rogue. And then there's Prince Andrew, the man who, according to Lee, is less evil mastermind and more clueless elite. Not smart, just entitled. All the power, none of the accountability. The kind of man who uses royal trade missions as business opportunities for himself, not the country. The kind of man who needs staff to activate for him because apparently his only job is to play. Lee drops bomb after bomb like it's nothing. One particularly wild claim that Prince Philip, Andrew's father, allegedly had an affair with Fergie's mother. That's the very first sentence in the book. The kind of story royal commentators either pretend not to know or straight up deny, mostly because they didn't get it first. Protecting palace access matters more than the truth. And then there's Harry. Why did he threaten to sue Lee? Not over some deep allegation. No. It was a story claiming he punched Andrew in the face. Not career-ending, but here's the thing. Harry's protective, especially when his wife's image is at stake. Even an empty legal threat was enough to cause a stir. And it only boosted the book's visibility. Fergie isn't just a footnote in royal chaos. She's one of its main architects, according to Andrew Lee. Her behavior isn't careless, it's calculated. Every public move, every fake retreat, every apology tour, it's all a setup for the next act. And the palace? Rather than shutting the door, they keep inviting her back in. That's not just poor judgment, that's protection. They're scared of her. What does she know? Who does she know? What has she seen? She didn't just have connections to Epstein. She was living it up on the Lolita Express, staying in his homes, taking money from him. Not just a couple of grand for a bogus charity. According to Lee, she accepted far more than she ever admitted. That alone should have been enough to exile her permanently. But instead, she pops up next to senior royals on Christmas walks, like it's all water under the bridge. Lee also raises alarms about her financial dealings, a string of companies with no real paper trails, suspicious audits, and no clear explanation for how she stays afloat, unless you count access to Andrew as her business model. And here's the damning part. Her entire reputation hinges on still being in the royal family. That's her golden ticket. If she ever got fully booted out, her value drops to zero. That's why she clings to Andrew. That's why she's always right behind him in public. And Andrew? He's not some master manipulator. If anything, he's easily manipulated. Lee paints him as a man who never had to think too hard or earn anything. Raised with luxury, surrounded by yes men, shielded from consequences his entire life. He doesn't scheme, he enables. He lets people pull strings in his name. In return, he gets to keep living like royalty. Ethical, legal, doesn't matter. He just wants to be comfortable. Then there's the part no one wants to talk about, the alleged erasure of evidence. Lee says he knows of computers with Andrew-related information that were intentionally wiped clean. That's not PR cover-up. That's institutional damage control. But even with all this swirling around, the palace stays quiet. Lee believes the queen knew everything. Entertaining dictators, helping Andrew with trade missions that were often more about his pocket than the nation. She wasn't blind, she was complicit. Charles? He's not doing much either. Lee's theory? Balance. They don't want to go after Andrew or Fergie too hard because they're terrified of what might come out. The royals aren't protecting their image anymore, they're protecting secrets. Even Harry and Meghan, for all their drama, seem to benefit from this stalemate. Lee believes they know things too. Maybe not enough to destroy the monarchy, but enough to cause damage. That could be why the firm never fully cuts them off. Silent threat. You exile us. We talk. It's a chess game. Everyone's holding their pieces, some out of fear, some out of power, some still calculating the next move. William, though, isn't playing that game. According to Lee, he sees the rot clearly, the drama, the deals, the abuse of status. To him, it's not just a PR mess, it's personal. He's not covering for Andrew. He's not extending olive branches to Fergie. He wants them gone. Not out of revenge, but preservation. He knows the monarchy won't survive decades of dragging this baggage into every news cycle. Lee suggests William sees Andrew and Sarah as ticking time bombs, unpredictable, selfish, damaging to everything the crown is supposed to represent. He and Kate have worked hard to present themselves as the clean-cut future, the safe option, the professional face of the firm. And every time Andrew or Harry makes a headline, that image gets smudged. No wonder William doesn't want them anywhere near the throne or his kids. Charles, though, is stuck in the middle. Always too little, too late. Lee thinks Charles worries more about legacy than leadership. He doesn't want to be the king who dismantled the family. He wants harmony. Quiet retirements, image management. But that doesn't work when you're sitting on two powder kegs. So instead of action, he chooses half measures. Bring Fergie back, hope it silences her. Ignore Andrew, hope it fades. That's not leadership, that's avoidance. And the public? They're not blind. They see the double standards. Harry and Meghan get dragged for wearing the wrong color, while Andrew allegedly takes bribes under the table and still gets Christmas invites. The outrage isn't just from Republicans anymore. Even hardcore monarchists are asking, what are we protecting here? One of the most haunting points Lee raises is how many people are too scared to speak. Staff, insiders, journalists, they've seen things, heard things. Some spoke off record, some lost jobs, some lost friends. Lee doesn't name names, but the implication is clear. There's a quiet army of witnesses out there, and if even a handful ever went public, the monarchy's image would shatter. And silencing them? That's been too easy. Threats, legal pressure, employment risks. Some live in royal housing, some rely on royal contracts. If they talk, they lose everything. That's the scariest part. The truth isn't buried because it's false. It's buried because it's too real, too dangerous. Files that should be public, sealed. Records that should be archived, disappeared. Parliament looks away. The media tiptoes around. It's all stage managed. The monarchy was supposed to be about service, duty, stability, but what Lie reveals is uglier. A system where certain royals operate with zero oversight, and the institution bends itself to keep their secrets safe. And the longer it drags on, the worse it gets. Andrew shouldn't be protected because he's royal. He should be held accountable because he is. Fergie shouldn't be welcomed back because she knows too much. She should be investigated because of it. Lee doesn't claim to have all the answers, but he's not afraid to ask the questions that matter, the ones that make people uncomfortable. Because until someone does, nothing changes. And the monarchy, for all its pageantry and power, risks becoming exactly what it was never meant to be: untouchable, corrupt, and obsolete.